Hello, welcome back, and today I'm going to have a quick look at the 2024 Silk Road Mountain Race route. Now we're at the time of year now where the routes for next year's events, 2024, are starting to be announced. So I thought I'd just run through a few. I've already done one looking at the transcontinental race checkpoints, so go and check that out if you've not seen it already. I'm going to cover the Silk Road Mountain Race now, and I'll cover a few more over the coming weeks. So without further ado, let's get across and have a look, see what riders can expect in Kyrgyzstan next August. Now, rather handily, Nelson, who organises the Silk Road Mountain Race, is now using Arabel GPS for his routes, which is the software I prefer. And it allows you to put all these POIs in. So it saves me most of the job. I've actually copied it across onto my routes, and I've added a few more bits in. I've added the passes in so I can just sort of give you a bit of a clearer overview. So yeah, let's have a look. So I did the Silk Road Mountain Race this year, so I've got loads of footage of the events, and a lot of it is kind of similar, although a fair bit is in reverse. Actually, this year, 2023, we started in Karakol over here further towards the east of the country. The race doesn't go that far east this year, and is starting in Bishkek, which is the capital city, which, to be honest, is going to be a hell of a lot easier for logistics. All the flights going to Bishkek. Last year, it was a 7-hour drive over to Karakol with jet lag, which really wasn't ideal, and the road is sketchy as well when you're in a car. That was probably the most dangerous bit of the whole trip. So starting in Bishkek is going to be really good. Probably not quite as convenient for acclimatization, but there's a really big ridge of mountains here, so you can get up fairly high. As you can see from the profile here, I guess that's not quite the highest point of the race, but not far off at all. And yeah, riders are going straight up Ketti Pass, which is an absolute classic of the Silk Road Mountain Race, and it was in the race last year, and this is the part the riders will be climbing. Obviously descending down here, so quite, as I said, a lot of this is in reverse. So this is the top of Ketti, heading back down towards Ketti village, and now it's probably about an hour and 20 minutes descending from the top down to the village. So imagine, I wasn't going super flat out. I was trying to be fairly careful, and I was quite tired by this point because it was pretty much the penultimate day of the event. However, just imagine climbing. That's going to be a hell of a long climb. It's 2.5-3 hours, I would have thought, to get to the top, and you're touching on 3,500-4,000 meters up there as well. You can see here there was a bit of weather. The first couple of editions there was a snowstorm up there. The thing with these mountains is they tend to be, if you get up and over, normally you drop down out of it fairly quickly. But I mean, it's an absolutely breathtaking and spectacular place. This was Lucas, who finished 5th. I was 7th in the event. So yeah, this is the top section, and you can see the valley in the distance there. It goes all the way down. And then once you get to the top, the climb's going to be easy, but the descent is going to be tricky. So we climbed up this in the 2023 edition, and as you can see, there's loads of lines everywhere. Now it will be easier going down. If you're already quite a competent mountain biker, you could probably ride decent chunks of this on this top section. But as you can see, it's super steep, sketchy. I mean, you don't want to cock this up because it's a long way down and some quite sort of steep drops. So yeah, you're going to want to be careful on Ketti. So I'll zoom in on the map, and you can see here you're going over the range of mountains, and then you're dropping down. So there is actually another pass. If I go to edit, I can show you the heat map from last year. You can see the heat maps on already. So you can see last year, sorry, we're still in 2023, the last edition, 2023 edition. We came up this valley and then straight up Ketti. This time the riders are coming down, so the riders are heading south and then going right across this other pass. Now I don't know much about this loop here, having not ridden it. But again, you're still pretty high up, so I imagine it's not going to be too dissimilar to Ketti going up over here. So I expect that it will be tricky enough. And then dropping down again. So it looks like a long, gradual descent back down to, I say, sea level. Not really sea level, 5,000 feet. That's about as low as you get on this race. High altitude is a thing that is the common theme. Then you've got the loop out here. Now, as I said, I don't really know much about this section, having not done it. But I don't think I don't think it'll be too bad. I mean, it's not looking like you're getting up to too much higher elevation, and then you're getting back onto the ground I'm more familiar with, up to the checkpoint 1 at Songkul Lake. Now this is pretty high altitude, so again you've got the pass in here. Let me just go back to the route, so we don't have to look at all the editing stuff. So yeah, Songkul Lake, that is the checkpoint, and you're going to have a quite a steep climb heading up to that. So it's called Tuzashu, I believe, and this is the top. And again, this was done backwards in 2023, so riders will be coming up the opposite way to what I'm riding here. It's fairly steep, but it wasn't too rough. As you can see, it's relatively well driven. You can drive up there in a 4x4 if you've fairly experienced, and yeah, I mean, it's just a beautiful place, Kyrgyzstan. Really worth it. You're climbing a lot. You're up high. You've got all those elements that come with high altitude, mountains. But it really is beautiful. It's a beautiful place, and yeah, it's somewhere I would love to go back. I probably won't go back in 2024, but I will certainly be back in future years after that. So you can see the kind of thing you're dealing with. I mean, generally it's not too bad. You're just dealing with altitude. Early on in the race it might be a problem. I found that I struggled a bit earlier, and then later on my body adapted quite well, and then it wasn't really a problem at all. So that is the climb up to Songkul. Let's have a little look at Songkul. I don't actually have much video here. I left pretty early in the morning. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit of a state when I got to this point. I didn't have the best night's sleep, and I was really, 6-7 days into the race, you do tend to kind of struggle a bit, but there are some little Google Map little men. So there you can see, that's the lake. So you'll be travelling around here. The pass is in the far distance somewhere. And then the CP is usually down on this kind of little pasture here, either this one or the next one along. They do tend to move them around slightly, but it won't be too far off. So that's CP1 at the lake, and then you're heading up, and then you've got a nice long descent down. Again, did this backwards last year. Moldu Ashu is the name of the pass, and it's going to be a really cool descent. It was a nice long draggy climb for me, but for the riders in 2024, you can see this is the valley you're heading down into. So climbing up, so you can see the road in the bottom there. Riders will be coming the opposite way. Basically you're going up from way above up to the top left here and dropping back down. The track's fairly good. It'll be quite a fast descent, and then you're into a long valley at the bottom. Plenty of running water, and it really is a pleasant place. It was when I was there. I mean, I'm sure if the weather closes in, it won't be quite as nice, but it's a really cool place. And then you're dropping down. There's a really good little guest house. There's a really good shop here. The shop actually has a little restaurant. I stopped there and got some food last year. And then you're going along this section here. It's a bit of a drag, I'm not going to lie. It's just soft and like deep gravel. It was super, super hot as well in 2023. Again, I suspect, given the terrain, that it will be pretty warm most of the time in the summer. It was kind of, it's quite low down. It seemed like a bit of a basin just trapping the heat. But yeah, quite deep, slow going gravel, some tarmac, but generally this section is a real drag. There's a tiny shop here. It's kind of like the minimal amount you'll get in a shop. You can get bread, and I think I had popcorn for lunch, and you can get biscuits, which are then properly melted in the heat. That was a bad choice. And then you've got a real long climb up. I don't actually know the name of this. Again, we ended up going down this because of the direction of the course in 2023, but it's pretty spectacular. Again, I was with Lucas. This is where I first met him on the ride, and you can see it's not too bad here in terms of the surface. You can roll along pretty quickly, going down certainly anyway, but going up it should be okay. It's just one of those climbs you've got to appreciate. You're going to settle in for a couple of hours minimum. And you've just got to kind of like unplug your head. You can see you're going all the way down here in this far distance. That's where you'll be coming from. So yeah, it's almost a mental game a lot of the time with the Silk Road. It's you know you're going to be climbing for long periods of time, um, and you've just got to get your head around it and get on with it. So yeah, so then you go towards Kazan. There is another little climb in here. So again, did that last year. It won't be too bad actually coming from that direction. You can see from the profile, it's quite a drop down. So this climb was really steep last year and deep gravel through a gorge. But because of the direction, you know, you're going to do more of the climb the other side. So it's not going to be too bad. It's going to be a couple of hours climbing up. That's probably going to be 20 minutes, half hour, getting back up to this to the drop down to Kazan, and then you're following the river. It's just quite flat. It's probably the flattest part of the whole course, but it is deep gravel. And then in Kazan you can resupply. There's most shops. I managed to go through in the middle of the night, so I didn't actually get a resupply there. But yeah, it's one of the places on the route you will definitely want to stop at. There is a hotel and things. I didn't stay there. I actually camped on the hill just beforehand. I found a nice warm spot, and I was quite into kind of like camping out, so I just stayed out there. But yeah, again, you're gonna have to climb up here. It's not too bad. It's a well-graded road, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then you're heading towards Baitov, which is the town here. And this section, I mean, if you look at the profile, it is kind of more of a net downhill. But going the other way, it really was a drag. It was just false flat into a headwind. And I know, obviously, things like wind are going to be dependent on, you know, the specific time period. But you can see the gravel here. It's just not fast rolling. It's a deep section that's washboarded, slightly uphill. I mean, if you're coming back down the other side, you're going the opposite direction, so you will at least have gravity with you. So you might be able to carry more speed, and that makes it way easier on the washboard. But it's a bit of a drag. I found it a bit of a drag. It was quite hot as well. I sort of got the feeling that it's quite a warm kind of valley, and you can kind of see by the colourings on the map here. You know, it's a bit more deserty. There's not much green around in this section. And Baitov, this is a place you definitely want to resupply. You've got a hell of a climb coming after that. There are hotels and things there. There's restaurants. It's one of the bigger towns en route. There's not much on this route. It's, you know, limited resupply is one of the things that's kind of a theme of the Silk Road mountain race. So yeah, definitely want to resupply in Baitov. And then you've got the big climb. So this is Mels Pass. Again, came from the other way. Where are we? So yeah, this was a descent. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular going down there. But I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a drag going up. So this is the pass. Obviously, again going the other way, but you can see just what you're dealing with. I mean, the road itself isn't too bad, but the terrain, it's just spectacular. I remember going down this thinking, you know, wow, you can basically see the next day's worth of riding ahead of you. You can see Baitov just in the far distance. That little blob of green in the distance is Baitov, and you can see the road just winding and winding and winding. Again, it's probably a good solid hour descending down that mountain, so you're going to be looking at 2.5 hours at least, I would have thought, going up the other side. And then you've kind of got like a double pass as well, so you're going up. That's the main bulk of the climb. Short drop down and another little climb up, and then you're hitting the Chinese highway, which again, we did this back to front with the other way around, so we did at least had gravity on our side. So I can imagine it's going to be a bit of a drag, and you are really high up here. You're kind of like, you know, over 3,000 meters on this section up here, and I really can imagine the weather whips in there. So I slept somewhere on the highway. It was -6 when I woke up in the morning. So you do have to, you know, be prepared for, basically you're just super exposed. So you get over the passes, Mels Pass and the other one, and this is basically the junction. That's the highway. And you'll be coming down here, hanging a right, and you can see there's no mountains really that high above you, which is a sign in a really mountainous country. You're pretty high up. So yeah, pretty spectacular. And then you're rolling down the highway, and there's basically a massive truck stop at this border. There's not much there, really. So it's a checkpoint. basically this is where all the trucks go into China on this massive highway. There's a big description on the side here that Nelson's put together, and he describes where is it? It's he basically describes the little shopkeeper. He's got a little caravan, and that's a good place to resupply. Well, I mean, you shouldn't rely on it, but you can get a meal there and some real basics. So I was freezing cold when I got here. Ended up in this caravan with a bowl of soup and some bread. All the truckers are there, and the guy who runs this knows about it. So he fed me, fed numerous other people in 2023. So yeah, there is some hope there, but it's not somewhere you really want to rely on. But you can kind of top up if you need to. Again, Beethoven, you need to get loads of food. Because then the next section is really quite remote. There's not much up here at all. It's wild. I mean, it was wild when I was there, and it wasn't bad weather. And as soon as the temperature went down, it dropped. And as you can see, it's going to be a net downhill to the checkpoint for going kind of west to east. We were going east to west, so it was a hell of a drag. It was really just a bit of a miserable afternoon spent on the bike, to be honest. Just kind of like riding into the wind. You can see there's nothing around you really. Even the telegraph poles have been blown over by the wind. It can be bumpy. It can be washboarded. It can be like, this is quite a good section of road, but there were sections where it was quite gravelly. So yeah, it should be better going this direction, I would have thought. But again, it depends on the weather, because if the wind's going the other way, it could be a real drag. And if the weather closes in there, I mean, it'd be disgusting. I mean, there's a good chance that if there's precipitation, it could be snow. So you want to be having your warm kit on for sure. And there's also a load of like wide river crossings. Now, it wasn't too bad this year. I could get through. I didn't have to get my feet wet. You could ride through most things. However, I imagine this changes year on year depending on the conditions and the snowpack. So I would have thought that it can get quite, well, it looks like quite a big river here. So you can see that you're kind of, it shows the river being really wide here. Obviously that's at its highest when the snow's melted. This bridge is actually out. So you're basically trying to kind of, you have to ford across at some point. So yeah, expect to get wet feet. And if you don't get wet feet, then you've had a good day. And then you're heading towards the next checkpoint, which is Ketti. Again, this was a checkpoint in 2023. There's a lovely pass up through here. Let's see if there's any photos. No, there's no photos there, but I can put the little man on and you can see the kind of terrain we're looking at here. It looks a bit bleak in that photo, actually. I'll put my video on. It looked much nicer when I was there last year. So this is this is at the base of the old Soviet road. So you can see in the far distance, that's the checkpoint. The mountains, behind the big mountains with the snow on, is China. And then you have to go up this absolute brute of a climb. It's not long. It's just a slog. You'll be walking up this. There's no questions about that. The old Soviet road, and you can see you go straight up, and you can just about straight in the middle of the scene there. You can see the top, but you're going to be walking probably 45 minutes an hour. I mean, it's not horrendous by any means, but it's just a little bit of a drag. And if you're not expecting it, then it can be a bit of a kick in the teeth. And bear in mind, you're still on this high altitude plateau. You're going to be struggling for breath, and you get over it, and then there's still a few little bumps. So it takes much longer than you think. And then you've got a ride back across. There's a checkpoint up here. There's a little bit of a climb, but it's not as steep as the other side. I camped somewhere on this climb in 2023, but then you're dropping down. So it should be quite a nice fast descent down. And then there'll be a few little climbs. This is road climbs. It's not going to be too bad at all. And then you're in Narin. So I'd say Narin's probably the biggest town on the route. Scratch City, as it's known, a lot of people do scratch here because of the remote sections before and after it, and because of its easy access back to Bishkek. But there's a hotel here. I think it's Hotel Narin. Everyone always goes. A lot of people always stay there. So it's actually on the other side. It must be this one here, on the other side of the city. I ended up getting a. I resupply here. I think I resupplied at the gas station just on the exit. I also brought a kebab and then lost my nerve after eating half of it in case I got ill. But actually I was okay. Meat in Kyrgyzstan is not ideal necessarily. And again, you're following a bit of the section we did last 2023 in reverse. And then the route does differ a little bit. So you're going up to Arabel, so the Arabel Plateau. So 2023 we came down this way. It's a really spectacular and remote part of the route. So climbing up Arabel Pass. I'm not actually sure if it's called Arabel, this valley is the Arabel Valley or not, but the pass is definitely the Arabel Pass up to the Arabel Plateau, really high. I was really struggling for breath there. I got there in the dark and ended up dropping down into the top end of this. There's loads of river crossings as well, so my feet were getting like really wet. I had waterproof socks on, but in the morning everything was frozen. My shoes were frozen. It took me ages to get my feet in. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. If you can do that section in the day, I suspect it would be better. And then the riders will be dropping back down. So again, I'm not super familiar with this section because we came in from a different pass up here, which was a brutal hiker bike, which sucked. But CP3 guest house down on the lake here. Again, you're probably about 1800 meters. So basically that's sea level for Kyrgyzstan. You won't get much lower than that. And you want to resupply here before Tosor Pass. Now again, I've not ridden Tosor Pass, but just looking at the profile, I mean, it's pretty much comparable to Ketti in terms of altitude and height. So I imagine it is very similar. Having done the pass sort of the other side to Arabel, I can imagine it's very similar. I would love to go and ride that pass. So yeah, it's going to be a good few hours, probably 2-3 hours to get out that. And then you're in this remote section again, tracing your steps, and then heading back across. Again, I'm not super familiar with this section, having not ridden it, but it looks like it's kind of a net downhill, so it should be easier, and there is a bit more kind of life in this area in terms of like shops and things like that. The next one, Shampy Pass. Again, I don't know too much about this one, but it's still relatively high, so it looks like it's going to be a fairly substantial climb up. I've heard about it, but I've not ridden it. And then you're into the bonus climbs. Now the bonus climbs, well, they're called the bonus climbs because they're kind of not really big enough to warrant being a big deal in terms of, you know, like the big passes like Ketti, but they're steep and they're long enough just to be a bit of a pain. This is descent down from the final one. There's basically 3 of them together, and I did most of them in the dark, so it probably felt a lot worse than it actually was. I did a lot of pushing in the end, just because I couldn't be bothered to grind along in like the smallest gear. So this is the descent down, and once you get onto this section, you know you've got it easy for half hour or so. Again, it was quite dry. If it rains, I suspect this might be quite slow going, but you're heading down this valley in the background, and there's a nice resupply. The secret oasis. It's basically on the main highway, so it's kind of like a service station. But yeah, this was beautiful. This was like 7-8 in the morning, and basically that's going to be your final main resupply before the finish of the race. So yeah, the finish will be the same as it was in 2023, and you'll be going up and over Kok Erik to finish. I really enjoyed it. This valley, I'm not actually sure the name of this valley, but basically you're just dragging up all day. It's quite a long drag, but it is absolutely beautiful. I just wanted to stop up there, to be honest, and just spend a bit of time. You're just going up gradually. There's a few kind of like steps in it, which probably would be a pass in any other country, but in Kyrgyzstan they don't even register, and you're basically in these high altitude, I guess they're pastures. There's lots of horses and cattle and goats and sheep and things up there, and you're gradually working your way up until you get to the base of Kok Erik, which is pretty much the highest point on the entire route, and it's a drag. It's a 4-hour hike bike essentially. If you get that in your head, you're not going to be disappointed. You can see some bits are rideable, but some bits have been swept away. You'll be on and off your bike a bit, and you're kind of going up towards the snow in the back there and around the back of these mountains, and yeah, it's just a long old drag, but once you get to the top, you know that you're almost done, and it's essentially downhill. It's an hour descent down to the coast. Basically, it's an hour down and an hour across. If you get to the top of that pass, you can budget on about 2 hours. You'll be done for not much effort. So drop down and then flat down the highway and finish in Chopalta, which is where the finish was in 2023. So yeah, that is the Silk Road mountain race for 2023. So I hope you've enjoyed this little video, found it interesting. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments, or let me know if there's any other race routes you'd like me to sort of preview and go through. Obviously, if I've got some video and stuff, I'll add that in there. So yeah, I think the next one I'll do is the Accursed race, which is a new off-road race from the Transcontinental Race Organisers. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you all soon.